What's up, guys? So today on the podcast, Eugene and I are going to talk about the idea of whether or not you need to be a better person to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a black belt in martial arts. And we bring this up because recently there was an altercation with a couple grapplers, and one of the grapplers afterwards, we'll get more into the situation when we get on the podcast, talked about the idea of kind of made this implication that, you know, you should be a better person if you're a black belt. I think that's what kind of the implication was. So we're going to talk about that. And it was mainly coming from a question from a friend of mine who's also a coach. And his guys, you know, they were having their mat chat the other day, and they were kind of talking about it. So we're going to dive into that question as well as the altercation. As always, guys, thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web, charlottesweb.com, promo code is Jiu-Jitsu, save 15% on the order. Again, I encourage people to check it out. I'm a big fan of their products, always have been since I started using them several years ago. If you've ever dabbled in CBD, it can be all. I was actually listening to Joe Rogan the other day talk about this. On one of his podcasts, he was talking about how he was like, I've used several different CBDs, and like sometimes I'm like one will light me up like I'm just high, and other times like it, you know, not so much, whatever. And so it's the same thing with me. Like when I was using CBD back in like 2000, I think it was 2018, I was trying different ones. And I'd heard about CBD before and like heard that it was really great. And, you know, I've heard I heard people on podcasts like me talking to you that, oh, it's so great, you should use it. And again, it's always like, it's that read where they're like, you should use this product. It's great. It's got all these things, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I'm not taking that stuff. It's like, it's kind of expensive. And, you know, it sounds like snake oil. It sounds too good to be true. Guy put a little cream on me at a camp down in Costa Rica. All of a sudden, the next day, my knee felt a little better. I was like, oh, well, that's nifty. And then I was like, well, let me try the CBD stuff out. So I started using it. And I remember the first batch I got a hold of was good. I really enjoyed the benefits. I noticed for me, I think where I noticed the most was my level of anxiety. Sometimes was diminished. It helped out with that, and sleep made my sleep. Like at the time I was having trouble sleep because I was like, just so much stuff was going on, and it helped kind of like help me rest. I felt like it just helped me rest better at night. So I was like, sign me up. Well, then the next time I got a bad batch, I was like, oh, what the hell, you know? So I would go back and forth. And then, so when we started using Charlotte's Web, I really like it because it's consistent. I know what's in there. So I know, like, for instance, if I come back from a trip sometimes and I just want to sleep, like I want to get knocked out, I know my dosage to take. I take a little bit higher of a dose, right? And then sometimes I don't need that much, right? Sometimes I most of the time I can actually do a lower dose. I can go fairly low on the dose and just get by on that. Like for instance, like right now I'm using the 60 milligram tincture of the orange blossom.
Yummy.
And it's pretty good. And the 60 milligrams, so it's one drop, right? One dropper. Yeah. Yep. But I need like a fourth of that. Like for my average night, I don't need 60. Right. Now, if I want to just be chilled the hell out, 60. And I actually I remember I gave one of the guys at the gym, my videographer, you know, I was like, hey man, try this stuff out. You know, like, just see if you like it. And he liked it. He was like, oh man, he's like, he asked me one time, he's like, hey man, you got to know Spartan. He's kind of quiet. He's like, hey man, can you get any more of that stuff? You know, I was like, I'd like it. So I was like, yeah, I got you, dude. I got some at home. I'll bring some to you, you know? And so again, I'm a big fan of their stuff, and I share it with everybody that I come in contact with. And so if you guys would like to try it out, again, I say this from personal experience. It can be game-changing stuff for some people. Some people, just like any medication, just like, you know, people around the world are getting vaccinated, and like some people have these adverse reactions to it. Happens. That's any sort of thing that you use. So just like that with CBD, they're probably not going to have any crazy adverse reactions, but you may not get the same effect that I had. But you can test it out for yourself and see what you think and see what you feel. So you can try it out. And again, if you want to save some money on it, go to the charlottesweb.com, use the promo code Chewjitsu. And again, the tincture is what I'm using right now, the 60 milligram. Again, it's pretty potent stuff. So if you've never used it before, you can probably do the 30 milligram and probably get away with it at 17 milligram.
Yeah, there's 17.
Yep. 17.
And I think they usually recommend start a little lower and just see what the dosage is. I take a 60 milligram, the whole dropper in the morning, and then I do some gummies at night, and then I'm good.
Hard. Good. I don't need that much, but test it out and see for yourself. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll, rollbjj.com. Promo code is Chewjitsu. Again, 15% on the order. And if you want to go to Matt's website, if you're in the neighborhood, if you're in the market, there we go. I was like, in the neighborhood, like we're talking about an internet website here, Chewy. Ain't no such thing as the internet or a neighborhood. If you're on the market for some jiu-jitsu gear of some sort, I'm a big fan of Matt's stuff. Obviously, if you've looked at any of my pictures recently or my videos, I've probably been wearing his Velcro-less shorts. And one of the guys the other day, I wore the Urban Legend rash guard. I come in and he's rolling with me and I'm on my back and he's inside my guard. So his head's kind of buried in my chest a little bit. And then all of a sudden he kind of he stops. He goes, "Oh, bro, look at all this stuff." And he just starts looking on the shirt. You know what I mean? So he's like, "Look at all there's Sasquatch and there's 5G and there's an alien ship and there's all this stuff." And, and then I armbarred him because he wasn't paying attention. I'm just kidding.
Haha. Make your armbar. Make your armbar, people.
Make your arm bars easier by distraction.
Don't
be too distracted by all the cool stuff on you to do it. But no, I'm a big fan of Matt's stuff. So again, if you have not been over to his website, this is a problem that happens sometimes when Chewy gets talking. Chewy starts talking too fast and his brain is going faster than his big mouth can keep up. If you haven't been over to the website at epicrollbjj.com, I encourage you just to check it out. See if there's some stuff that you like. Again, if you like kind of what I would call subtle, simple designs, then you'll probably like Matt's stuff. You've got some good stuff over there. And again, jiu-jitsu stuff with a flair that's not so, I don't know, like for instance, think of like MMA clothing back in the day. And then you had some of those like really gaudy shirts that came out that were related to MMA and it was like crap all over them.
I love those shirts.
Minus all that. Like it's very subtle. It's like it says that you're doing jiu-jitsu without like screaming something crazy like I'm gonna snap your neck or
snap
whatever.
your neck.
Yeah.
Snap, nap, tap, scrap,
whatever. So check out his stuff. I'm a big fan of it. And then also thanks to Manscaped for making this podcast possible. I'm a big fan of their stuff. I'm a big fan of all, I say this every time for almost every product that we have on here, but I'm also a big fan of them because we don't have anything on the show. So I should stop saying it because it becomes redundant, but I'm a big fan of everything that we have on the podcast because I've tried it all. We don't allow anything to make it on the podcast if we haven't used it. Sometimes this is to the dismay of some of the people that have tried to enlist things with us. Like even just now, I do this with my students too. There's a guy that's running a service inside of Louisville that recently was like, "Hey, I want to do a partnership with your gym." And I was like, "Sure, man." I was like, "Well, here's what I want you to do. You take me through your service. I want you to take me through the whole process. And, if I like it, I think it goes well, then I'll be happy to share with my students." I haven't gotten an email back. So what
was it?
I don't want to get too into it, but it's a service where you go in there and you get some stuff done. And the thing is, it's like, that's for me, like I have to do it. I can't do it without because if I tell someone to use something and I'm not using it, I'm like, I feel like a dirty liar. Right. But some of you guys ask for, I do. Some of you guys ask for beard tips. So like one of my students recently, he was beard tips. Yeah. They're like, "Chewy, how do you get your beard?" First off, I'm just hairy. I'm not overly hairy, but my face hair just grows. But I used the trimmer from Manscaped. Not that that's going to do everything for you. But you can use another trimmer, but I like that it's cordless, it's mobile. And so I can take it. So for instance, where the way we're positioned is I don't like to trim my beard over top of my sink. Because when I trim it over top of the sink, crap gets everywhere, right? Like I get hair everywhere. I'm cleaning hair out, because you don't want to have like hair all over the place. It's gross. So I like staying in the shower, and then this way I can trim where then it goes into the tub, and then afterwards it'll just get caught. We've got this little thing that'll catch all the hair, right? It's very simple, right? Take a shower afterwards, good to go. So when I'm trimming my beard, and when Jess trims my back or whatever, we do it in the shower. Now the thing is on the corded one, it doesn't reach. So our
it's not exactly safe either, if you're wondering.
Well, yeah, I don't. I'm not doing it while I'm showering.
That's it. That's the thing.
I'm not doing it while I'm showering.
That was the thing for you. It doesn't reach. Thank God it doesn't reach. You might not be here today, bro.
No. It doesn't. No. It's not that. I don't have the shower going.
Oh, okay.
Listen here, asshole. Let me turn the light on for you so we can see in the dark.
Look, guys.
Power outages.
If you have a power outage, the Manscaped trimmer can be a helpful flashlight if you don't have one handy. See?
Oh man,
doesn't sound that bad.
It does.
As I say it,
it does. It does. If you're in a power outage, the last thing you want is a friggin' flashlight in the form of a trimmer.
Don't.
But no. So seriously. So if you have a setup like the bathroom that I do, right, where we have an outlet, but it's kind of far away to get to the tub.
Yeah.
So, but we've got a big mirror, so I can sit there and trim my beard up, and the mirror's right there. and then it can all wash out. So it's nice and handy. It's cordless.
It is
waterproof. So you can use it if you want to turn on the shower. And everything that I've used from them has been good. Everything from their cologne, which smells amazing. They've got the trimmer, the lawnmower. I've also used their the razor. The razor is pretty good. It was weird. The gel that came with it was really tacky. I was expecting like a normal shaving gel, but the gel was very tacky. But it made the skin really smooth. Like the razor just glided right over top of it. So again, good products, good stuff. Again, check it out. If you're in the looking process for a trimmer or some male grooming products, go to manscaped.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20. You save 20% on the order and you get free shipping. And guys, one thing I wanted to bring up, Eugene doesn't want to talk about it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But Eugene, by the way, I've got a jiu-jitsu camp coming up. If you guys want to go to it, just check my Instagram or my something. Check whatever you follow me on. You'll find stuff about the upcoming camp. You can also find details of it if you join my email list by going to jiujitsu.net, clicking on free ebook. You'll get some details. But Eugene's got a new thing that he released. It's on like elbow, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've been working actually on basically, I work with a lot of grapplers and that's kind of like my niche, I would say. My little piece of the. Basically,
what happens is someone in the gym gets hurt or injured or has tendonitis or something, and then we always funnel them to Eugene because you don't want to go to a physical therapist who's like, "Why are you doing this? Like, do you have to do this? Do you really have to train? Like, yeah, I got to train. Help me fix me. Stop giving me the guilt."
The worst thing you can say, and sometimes I do have to say this to people, is like, you can't train for a little bit or what have you. But so even through my own injury of like a fractured my arm doing dumb stuff, not following the rules of jiu-jitsu, which is not planting on an outstretched hand. I fractured my radius bone and I was out for, quite a while, but just through that process and working with people, and elbow injuries are very common in jiu-jitsu anyways, with arm bars and even kimuras and Americanas. Those will, they do attack the shoulder, but they do actually attack the elbow as well.
So in this, like, what are we getting from it? Like, what's like, cause like, does it deal with like the tendons or is it more
as
the
far
joints?
As what?
Well, it's like, so for instance, like this course that you got. So, cause I know it's like,
so it's everything. So basically like if you've had, it's going to address a little bit. It's generally like if you have elbow stiffness, elbow pain, just irritation in your elbow. So it's kind of a way, even if you've injured it and you're starting to come back from an injury, you've been kind of cleared to return. So basically it's not really specific to tendonitis, but it will help some of those things for sure. It definitely will, because I incorporate a lot of like negatives and eccentric type exercise, but it's basically a way, like if you went to a therapist or if you went to me, these are the things that I would use with you to start you from day one. Okay. Like after you're like an injury, day one to getting back to the mats. And there's, so it's five sessions. They're about 20 minutes a session. I'll take you through the whole sequence and very minimal equipment, so I just kind of show you what I would do. And kind of the last session is basically like, let's see if you're ready to go back. So I give you some drills and we do some actually movements and techniques that if you can tolerate them, you should be pretty good to get back to training. So it's kind of like a way to test yourself too, see if you're ready to go back. So it kind of from the beginning to right back to training. So I'll take you through the whole sequence, super easy.
I wish I had one. I remember like when I was a young white belt and I fought arm bars too much. And when I would also squeeze things too much. I remember one time I went and watched a movie with this girl and, put my arm around her at the movie theater, sitting there for like an hour with like that. We got up and like, I couldn't, like, I had to grab my arm because my elbow was like locked in place because it was all inflamed. I'm like 19 at the time. I'm not old. God. I reached over and had to pull my arm over and like, it was so tight. So, and I remember it was like that for almost a year. Like I remember like I hold the phone and I'd put the phone, I'm like, oh my God, my elbow is so tight. And it was from all that squeezing and then like fighting arm bars all the time. And so, like that would have been something useful for me to have.
Yeah. And there's a little bit, you look at, and when you look at the elbow, you also want to look at the wrist. You want to look at the shoulders. There's a lot of impact to that whole, like, because if you injure your elbow, or injure your hand, like you're not using your arm normally altogether. So it's kind of, you don't want to just kind of fixate on the elbow or just
because you can create problems with the rest of them.
It all interconnects. And if you say you don't use your elbow, say you're in a sling or something, and your shoulder's going to get stiff. So I address the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, the whole chain, and then we kind of do some jiu-jitsu get specific movements at the end.
Cool.
It's really what I would do for myself. It's what I do with myself, and also with, athletes I work with.
Cool. So if you got any sort of elbow issues going on right now, check out his course. Where can they get the course?
So I'll leave a link down in the description, jujitsutherapist.com or grapplingrx.com. And I have a wrist course, an elbow course. I have a warm up. I have a pretty crazy hip course, which is like, very
that's the beefy one.
It's beefy. It's
beefy.
Like it's a commitment.
If you want like better guard retention and you want to be able to move better with your hips, it's really useful, but it's not for the lazy.
It's a commitment. Yeah. Like you're
gonna have to work on it.
Yeah.
But if you're ready to do that, like, and you got some tight old hips, you could do the stuff and loosen up those damn hips.
For sure. And the elbow course I just released, I'll be, looking at other products down the line as well.
Cool. Well, guys, with all that said, let's get started with the podcast and let's talk about whether or not you need to be a better person to be a BJJ black belt. What's up, guys? So today's podcast, Eugene and I are going to talk about a little bit about the altercation. Most of it's not going to be about that because it really wasn't that big of a deal. But I did get a question from a buddy of mine, Jeremy, who runs a gym. And recently there was this altercation with Gio Martinez and Mikey Musumeci. I'm probably not saying his name correctly. Musumeci. I don't know. You know who I'm talking about, right? That dude that wins a lot of stuff. Well, so after his match recently with Gio, he got up on the microphone, and they trot these guys down over to the side right when they're done. They're all half breathing and they're trying to like go through the match and like say, "What did you do?" I think they'd do better if they gave him a second to catch their breath so they could even compute what just happened. But anyway, they said they asked him and he said that Gio said something to him, or there were some words exchanged or did something and he was really mad at him, and even said something to the effect of kind of like, this is a black belt jiu-jitsu doing something like this, as if to implicate that black belts in jiu-jitsu should be better than that, right? They shouldn't stoop to doing bad things or dirty things. Mm-hmm. And my friend Jeremy was asking me, he said, did if you saw that, what do you think about that? Talking about like, one, the altercation, but two, the actual idea of, should you be a better person to be a black belt, or should a black belt jiu-jitsu have to be a better person? Kind of an idea. Granted, better is a very relative term, because we're all broken, we're all messed up people, but better being relative. The traditional values, of just basically being a decent person to another human being, like you'd want to be decent to you, just that the golden rule kind of thing. That's when I think of a better person, it kind of goes back to that a lot of times. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's jump into it. First thing, the actual altercation. We're not going to talk too much about it because it was just silly. Mikey overreacted a little bit. He even said he overreacted in an interview after he calmed down and had a chance to catch his breath. And, the match is heated. You get into a match and it's a very hot thing, so to speak. There's a lot going on. Tempers can flare sometimes. Competitors have egos. And I don't mean this in a negative thing. A lot of times, again, the word ego gets misused in jiu-jitsu so much. When you sit at a dinner table and you're sitting with your friends or family or whatever, the reason that to put the food in your mouth is because you have an idea of who the self is, right? I'm me. That is your ego. That is it, right? When you look at the definition, it doesn't mean that you're an asshole. Definition means you have a good sense of who you are. And competitors have to have a very developed sense of who they are, because they're getting ready to go against someone and they got to know, I'm good enough to win. You don't get to the highest level of competition without having an ego and without having a pretty strong ego, because if not, you're not going to be able to win. You're not going to go out there and win world championship titles. You're going, well, I hope I win today and just going to see what happens, right? Like you got to kind of know, I'm good. Like, you might be nice about it. Doesn't mean you have to be mean, but you can perfectly fine to be pleasant. But you got to know when you step on the mat, like I'm good. I'm ready to go. When I step on the mat, I'm incredibly respectful to my opponents. I try to be on like all the time, but like when I'm on the mat, I know what I'm doing, and I'm very sure of myself. Granted, I still have my nerves and anxiety and all that stuff, but I'm pretty damn good, so I can take care of anything that comes my way. So that said, egos run high, people butt heads, and so after it was over, Mike even said, "Look, I overreacted a little bit, but." said something and he kind of bent my finger back or whatever. And I was just mad and frustrated. And of course, Gio's a black belt. He's skilled and everything else. But, that was that. But I want to talk more about the idea of, should a black belt need to be a better person? Because that to me is an interesting question. Because I think that a lot of times in martial arts, at least maybe in American sort of culture, we sort of mythologize martial artists. Like I remember when, growing up, I watched the movie Bloodsport, one of my favorite movies growing up. And I remember there's this, the scene where the Tanaka, the eventual teacher of Frank Dukes in the movie. By the way, if you've ever watched the movie, it's all horse crap. It's not real. It's fake. It's all fake. But just to let you know, because I grew up thinking it was real, like, because they put all the stats at the end. They're like they make it look like it's based on a true story. It's like, it's not based on a true story. It's made up. But Tanaka is talking to his parents, and he said this thing. He's like, because his parents apparently had a vineyard. He says, we use science to make vines grow stronger. And just like vines, we can use martial science to make our children grow stronger, right? And there was this idea that's implicated with, spiritual, physical, mental, this whole thing. It's not just about kicking people's ass. It's about being this well-rounded person. And I think that's always been the case with, especially with Americans. Like, we think of martial artists as these stoic Zen people. But it's not really the case. When you look at martial artists, like when you really go back and look at them, you're like, it's a fighting thing. Sure, some of them are great, fantastic people, but not all of them. I mean, heck, one of my buddies, he had a father who was he's a karate black belt. He got he got his black belt in Japan. He's Japanese born from the source. We as Americans sort of visualize them in some, place under a waterfall doing punches or something, like very stoked, whatever. Well, when he wanted to test out his karate skills, he'd go to the bars that were with a bunch of Americans, and he would test himself out on all the American GIs that were stationed there, and like, all right, let's see what they got. And he would fight them. He's a young guy testing himself out, right? It was frowned upon, but he's like, I want to test my stuff out. He's a young guy, right? Dealing with the same stuff. Now he teaches kids and everything else, and everything's great. He does a good job of what he's doing. But I'm just saying, like, just because they're martial artists doesn't mean that they're perfect, because we're all broken. We're all human, right? Mm-hmm. So this idea of like martial artists, black belts in jiu-jitsu supposed to be being a better person doesn't always add up, because I can tell you, I've met some pretty scuzzy black belts. I've met guys that were all about that, jiu-jitsu lifestyle, baby, and throwing up the shakas on pictures, but then you'll never see those dudes sweaty. You'll never see them coaching anybody. Maybe they're older and injured. You'll never see them coaching anybody. It's like they take their picture and they go back in their office, right? They're never on the mats with anyone. You'll see people that talk about the loyalty and the respect. Respect. And then they're misusing their trust with their students. I've had numerous students come to our gym that said that they felt like a dollar sign more than a student, right? Knew plenty of people over the years who have had weird interactions with coaches that were not at all like, what you would expect, so again, stuff happens, right? And they're people. And so I think that you kind of have to get rid of that idea of jiu-jitsu black belts being good people necessarily, because it doesn't mean they're good people. It means they're good at skill acquisition. They got good at something. They're able to beat people in this game, and they have a deep knowledge of this thing. And that's really what it is. Now, that said, you could potentially become a better person through jiu-jitsu, but I think it depends on whether or not you want to be better. Mm-hmm. Right. It's something where, like, I think about me, jiu-jitsu's made me a better person, I believe, because jiu-jitsu kind of, the image that I thought about when I was thinking about this the other day, it reminds me of, like when I was paddling in Florida. Jess and I went on a kayaking trip, and we're on this kayak, and we're, paddling across the water. And when we were coming back in the late afternoon, all of a sudden these birds called cormorants, they came down, and like tons of them were just around us in the group that we were in. And they're there, and we're looking around these birds, like, what are they doing? And the guy that kind of took us on this trip through these mangroves was like, what's happening is when you're paddling in the water, you're stirring things up. You're stirring up the dirt and everything else. And these fish that are kind of down there are having to move around because the water's getting stirred up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then these birds, they duck dive under the water and they catch the fish. So you'd see these, they would go underneath of your kayak, and they'd come up and they'd have this like fish lodged in their neck, and they'd have to like swallow it down, you know. But basically that's why they were swimming with us, because as we were paddling, we're stirring stuff up and then they would come get them, right? So similarly, you know, jiu-jitsu has a very good way of stirring things up, because a lot of people can put on a good face, right? They can keep themselves together, and they can look like very nice people, whatever. But then what happens when, you know, other emotions are being forced? Because you know this as well as I do. Jiu-jitsu has a way of bringing up things like anxiety, fear, frustration, anger, envy, you know, all sorts of different emotions that can come from jiu-jitsu as a byproduct, right? And you can choose to, you know, recognize those, that because they're getting stirred up, right? You can choose to recognize those and do something with them, and recognize them and be aware of them, because the awareness is transformative in itself. But you can be aware of them and say, oh man, look at this. I'm getting jealous because, you know, my buddy just won the medal and I didn't today. Man, that's messed up. I should be happy about this for him, not, you know, whatever. I just need to work harder. Or, you know, you can talk about the anxiety or the fear, like, why am I so afraid to do this thing? Or even be the overcoming of fear. You know, like, well, you know, I was afraid to do this thing. I mean, I've done that several times where I would be afraid to do something off the mats, but then I'd remember, man, I was afraid to do all this stuff in jiu-jitsu too. So maybe I'll be all right, you know? So you see this where it stirs stuff up and you have a chance to get down there and grab it, right? And do something with it. And so I think if you want to be a better person, you can become a better person through it. But I think it goes back to, do you want to be? And for me, like, I think about a lot of times, I have this kind of imaginary person in my head of who I want to become. I'll never become them, because this person becomes lofty and loftier no matter how much I do, right? But I have this imaginary image of who I want to be. And whenever I engage in behaviors that aren't good, that aren't useful behaviors, right? I always kind of, I try to catch myself. And again, I fail at this sometimes. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm just as broken as anybody else. But whenever I try to catch it and then ask, like, is this something that person would engage in, right? Would they, you know, do this kind of behavior, or would they allow these thoughts to just sit there in the mind and take root, you know? And so the answer is no. So then I try to do something to get around that, you know? And I think that if you want to be better than what you are now, then you find these opportunities using jiu-jitsu, just like you could use anything else in its place, to be a better person. You see them as challenges rather than, okay, like, you know, than just letting them grab hold. And, you know, I think that, like, for me being a coach, I feel like I have to be better, like, because I feel like I have to be I have to be there for the students, right? You know, because I feel like it's something that gives me a great sense of fulfillment, being there for the people in the gym. Also kids, got a lot of kids in the gym, got to be a role model for them, you know, role model with double L's. And then, you know, even people online, you know, again, I feel like, I've become sort of a mentor for a lot of people. Not even my words. Those are other people's words, right? Like, they're like, Chewy, you feel like a mentor to me. So again, I feel like I got to step my game up, you know, and I can do that obviously through training and through everything else. But jiu-jitsu has been one of those things where it's helped me deal with a lot of the negative sides of myself, like anger, fear, frustration, you know, all these things, envy, all that stuff. And so again, I don't think that you have to be a better person, and you should be careful to assume that someone is a better person simply because they've got a black belt tied around their waist, right? Let their character show. But if you want to be, just like anything else, you can. It's like this. Joseph Campbell, he was asked on a program once. The person asked him and said, "What is the meaning of life?" And he said, "The meaning is whatever you give it." Right? You give life meaning by what you do, what you find fulfillment in, that kind of thing. And I think it's the same way with, like, our journey in martial arts. Your journey could be simply, I want to get really good at winning medals, and, you know, that kind of thing. And if that's your thing, that's fine. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You won't be a better person. You'll just be the same old person. You'll just be better at choking people. But if you want to be, like I said, if you want to make this thing more than that, then you can do that by looking for that meaning out of it, and you can extract the meaning from these different situations when you're having them, right? And I think that's the difference. For instance, I want to be a better person. Not everybody wants to, and not everybody is introspective enough to like look at themselves and be, dude, I'm really screwed up. I need to fix this. You know what I mean? Because I mean, again, it goes back to awareness. That's the first step, is being like, we're all messed up and we're always going to be messed up, but at least trying to look at yourself and be like, okay, here's my issues. I need to work on these things, and then doing your best to do that. I think that's the key, but not everybody's going to. And so don't assume that everybody's going to be a great person just because they're a black belt. It doesn't automatically make you a better person. It meant that you got good at acquiring skill.
How have you gotten better? In what way have you gotten to be a better person, through jiu-jitsu? Like obviously you're a coach. You said you're a mentor. We've had, students that look up to you, call you if they're in, in a bad spot. You're there, and you make yourself accessible in that way. Did you even visualize yourself as being that type of way? Like that you were going to become, you said at 19, I started training, or at 18, whenever you started training, I want to fight MMA. I want to do these things. It wasn't, being a coach maybe was not the direct goal.
Right. It wasn't.
So what was it about this path that you've been on that led you here, that you feel like you're better now? Obviously you've grown up, started training at a young age. Now you're in your mid 30s. You grow up as a human, as a man, you grow up.
Yeah. You hopefully grow up.
You should. But how has jiu-jitsu made that transition for you? I've got some ideas for me, but I want to hear what your response is.
It'd be interesting to hear what yours are as well. Because you're starting to embark on some of the same things that I started when, back when I was a brown belt and young black belt. So for instance, here's an example. I used to have a bit of a temper. I didn't know how to really control it. I remember when I was younger, just as an example, like we would, like my buddy Chris, one of my best friends growing up, if I got angry, like I'd throw fits. I'm only talking about like we'd be playing video games or something, and I'd like chuck controllers across the room and stuff, just whatever. When I started wrestling in high school, I'd get really angry. Right. And like, I would just grit my teeth. I'd be going after people, whatever. I remember even at a church trip one time as a kid, I remember the kids, if Mike's listening to this, he knows who he is. He actually does jiu-jitsu now. He's his friend. He's cool. He's cool as can be. But when I was younger, him and some of the guys that were in the older group we were in this youth group. And I was like sort of the low man on the pole at the time. I went from the kids group to like the youth group. And when I was in the youth group, I remember, they do what boys do. They kind of haze a little bit, it's what we do. I didn't understand it at the time. But I remember when we were on this camp one night, like I wake up and like I wiped something on my face, and I had like shaving cream all over my hand. They put shaving cream in my hand, and then I tickled me, and then I wiped out. I was like, oh my God. And then like I'm just they got it all over my face or whatever. And then I remember like I can kind of see in the dim lit light that all of my underwear are on the ceiling fan spinning, and I got up and I was just so angry, and I was just like, I don't know, I was like cussing or hitting someone. I was just like, when I got angry, and they're like, the youth leaders are like, what is going on? And so I kind of have a temper when I was younger. I remember like jiu-jitsu, like I had to kind of get in touch with that a little bit because, you get older, you don't want to always do that. I don't want to be the guy that flips out but also like you learn, it doesn't really help you, because I remember I'd get frustrated and then like I'd, try to get out of something, especially like when I first started, I was wrestling and I'm going to explode out of it. Got stuck. And then the guy would submit me. You see,
counterintuitive.
What's that?
It's counterintuitive.
Yeah. So you got to stay calm.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of opportunities where like I had to learn how to stay calm. Fear was a big one. Growing up as a person where I got jumped, I got the crap beat out of me. Physical altercations were scary. And then I did something like jiu-jitsu where all of a sudden I'm putting myself in wrestling and putting myself into altercations all the time, then fought MMA, altercations again, physical, battles or whatever. And then you kind of like, you get used to fear. It becomes okay. Like, and then that sort of has a transferable effect over with pretty much anything, because it's like, for instance, like when I took the leap into the business stuff, it was like, I was scared, frightened, but I'm at the same time, I'm like, you know what? kind of did this all the time with jiu-jitsu and wrestling and fighting. I was scared then, but it turned out all right. I believe in myself to figure this out. I'll just jump in and see what happens. You kind of get that ability to do it, right? And then also through it, I didn't necessarily enjoy. It wasn't like I thought I was going to be this grand teacher or great coach or gym owner, but it became something that I wanted to do because then, and this is something that happens in wrestling and jiu-jitsu both. As you start to get better, it naturally happens. You become kind of a quasi mentor to people. It doesn't mean that you're like sitting there with them after class all the time, like, let's talk about life, right? But you might help them out with a move. Maybe they're struggling a little bit, and all of a sudden you're rolling with them one day and you're like, man, hey, put your arm here. And then that move helps them out a lot, right? Or maybe you share an encouraging word to them that you don't realize is important to them, but it is. It's like they latch onto it. They hold on to those words because they're like, man, this purple belt I was rolling with the other day, he told me I had a really good half guard sweep, and then so I just went all into half guard, right? And so all of a sudden 2 years later, they're using this. They're going to this thing because you gave them some encouragement, and that felt nice, and so they kept going down the rabbit hole, so to speak. But what happens is you start to do little bits of this, and then you get this, or even you teach a class and someone uses your move. It's like one of the best, like, oh, you use my move. Oh, it's awesome, man. Because you gave something to someone, and you get this feeling of what it's like to give back to people and then see the benefit of that. And there's something really powerful about that as humans. I really think that that's one of the most powerful things that we can do is share what we've learned and what we've gathered, and then allow them to use it. And when they use it and it comes back to you and you see the benefits of it, damn, dude, it feels good. And so you learn the satisfaction of service to others rather than just to self. And so that's something that I got from jiu-jitsu mostly, where I'm starting to coach, and all of a sudden I'm helping these people out. And I've had people come up to me and said I was going to kill myself, and then I started training this place, and this environment of people just helped me out. And the other day we gave a black belt, and a lot of the black belts that we have in the gym, right, they're the guys who have been with us for a decade or more almost, and some more, some less, but they're all good dudes. They're good guys. Even Jess talks about this. She's like, you just got a lot of good guys with you in the gym. And they're all guys I respect, in the gym, they're good. They're, I don't have any female black belts yet. When I have one, we'll male and female, right? But as of right now, it's a bunch of good guys, a bunch of good dudes. They're good men. They're fathers to their children outside of the gym. They do their best. They come in and they train. They embody the values that I hold important. We were just talking about before the podcast started about, if someone comes in and they're just like you don't know him, like some guy's maybe just traveling through or whatever, and all of a sudden he's just wrecking the poor white belt who just started. You're gonna be like, hey man, back off a little bit. You're instantly going to take care of, which is important. It's you got to hold the boundaries of the culture. And so they're all good people, and they're all good dudes. And then they're like, I love this place. Thank you so much for everything you've done for me. And it's that's a big deal to me. Right. And so to see that's a big thing. And so I think that's something I learned from there, is service to others. It's such a powerful thing. I think it's one of the most powerful things we can do as humans, because hell, you look at stories over and over again in stories, you always see this return. Joseph Campbell talks about this, once the person in the story has achieved the magical elixir, the information, the whatever it might be, they then come back. Right. They come back to the original place and say, hey, I've got this thing, in Lord of the Rings, it was the Return of the King. Right. It's just, it is what it is. Yeah. So I think that's such a powerful thing. And there's a lot of other things I could get into, but, there's all these little things where you go through these crazy situations or these difficult situations that then, if you want to work upon them, and if you're willing to be introspective about what's going on with you, you can become better as a person, both stronger mentally and physically, but also I would say a better person, a more useful person for the community around you. We'll say it like that. Instead of saying better, because better is kind of it's hard to quantify what better means because it's different for everybody, but being more useful, becoming a more useful person for the people around you, and for the community, right? That's kind of, I guess, what we're getting at here.
Yeah, good and bad's relative,
right?
That's you ask 10 people what's good and bad, you might get 10 different.
Oh, bro, you might not get any. Me using the idea of I have a lot of great men. Oh, Like,
well,
that's a bad idea. You know what I'm saying? Just like people can go really off into the weeds about what's good and bad. That's what I'm saying. So yes, good and bad is very relative. It's always exchangeable depending on your personal beliefs.
I think that why we have so many black belts that maybe we both respect and you respect and you thought were because one of the reasons or one of the things that you kind of said before, and you're not going to promote people if you're not going to promote them to a higher rank if they're not actually good people and not giving back to the gym, right? Because a lot of these guys you're kind of mentors or women, they're mentors, you know, like Madison's purple belt. She's kind of a mentor to a lot of these younger women at the gym. She's doing a
good job of helping a lot of women get into it
and stick with it too, you know? But like, I think that you see people that are maybe skilled at our gym, or they are skilled. There's no doubt about it. They're good at jiu-jitsu, but they haven't kind of put the other side together. And I think they just realize that this is not the play. It's not the place. They can go somewhere else and get their belt a lot more easily than it is here because you have to be more of I don't want to say a complete person, but you have to be more of a helpful to others. You have to give back. If anything, you have to give back to others a little bit. You have to be willing to be a good listener in a way, be a good partner, training partner. You have to be, you know, helpful to others. So I think like sometimes we have people leave the gym because they're just, I don't want to say there's a mold, but there's a certain expectation that we want them to meet. And if they're not fun to be around or pleasant to be around, and if they're not someone you can sit back and just have a conversation with, genuinely kind of talk about your life with them, I don't know if they're someone that's going to be able to connect with some of the other upper belts at the gym, I think. And you're not going to be able to connect with the younger belts either that are just there and want someone. They're sometimes seeking through jiu-jitsu, they're seeking a mentor in some way.
I think it's birds of a feather type idea, right? Like you are the company you keep, and what'll end up happening is this: you'll either begin to people assimilate it, just being around someone, you begin to assimilate. Like,
I agree.
Sometimes I'll like listen in on a class and I'll hear someone use a specific like coaching cue or teaching cue that I've taught over the years. I'm like, they probably don't even realize where they got it from. They just like, oh, this is a good term for it. I'm like, I gave them that one, you know what I mean? Which I'm fine. I'm happy they're using
it.
But even then, it's like you just see that people that, you know, when you have a culture in a room, people begin to adapt to that because the leaders lead, right? This is the difference between a boss and a leader. Like, boss tells you what to do, right? The boss is the jiu-jitsu coach that like doesn't actually train. They're not on the mats hanging out or teaching or anything. They're just kind of like, whatever. They're just telling people what to do. The leader is the person that gets out there and it's like, look, you know, they do what they can, but they lead by example and they do it. Right? They're leading people to do what they're going to do, right? So if you lead, it's a different situation. So again, if you're going to lead, people are going to naturally just look at you and say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what the leader's doing. This is what we're doing. Right. Because again, it's going to naturally adapt to it. And again, you know, like you said, it's one of these things where, you know, you might be amazing. You might be an amazing grappler. And I commend you for your being amazing. But if like, you're not a decent person to the people around you, I don't really want you around. I really don't care about your gold medals. You know, whoop-de-doo. It's like, because at the end of the road, like, that's not what it's not the only thing that matters to me. You know, I like gold medals and I like seeing people win because I like seeing students have their hand raised. It's fun, you know, and we do fine at competitions, but there's more to everything than just that. You know, I learned that myself, you know, because when I was younger, all I was worried about was competitions. And then you realize that the medals are nice, I guess, but they're still kind of hollow to some degree, depending on what you're after, you know, because you can chase more and more medals. But I feel like if you're not developing your inner game a little bit, then you're kind of hollow still. You know, hollow maybe is a good word for it, right? Like, you know, it's like a hollow tree, you know, big thick branch, like bark on the outside, right? Whatever, but on the inside, just nothing there. You know, now if you're both doing it at the same time, then I think that's a beautiful thing. You know, if you're working on your inner and your outer game, I think it's a beautiful thing if you're doing them intertwined together.
I think jiu-jitsu, like for me, like making me a quote unquote better person. I definitely think that it brings things to the surface for me. Like a lot of insecurities come up, right? Not necessarily, not directly, but jiu-jitsu, like if you're weak-minded in some ways,
how do you mean?
If you give up, if you give up, right? So
Mm.
somebody's crushing your damn face off there in side control, or they got knee on belly and they're just putting that, like Big Rob putting that knee on you. I remember that's the closest. I'll say that was the closest I've never tapped. Knock on wood. I've never tapped from knee on belly. That was the closest.
Probably squatting or lifting weights right now.
Closest
yes.
I have ever been to tapping from knee on belly. And I'll never forget this shit. But I had to dig deep. You know, I had to really, you know, am I going to quit here? Am I going to find the way out? Because there, tap that.
Just give a little tap.
Yep. And so for me, it bubbles things up. Am I going to quit? Am I going to give up? Whether it's something difficult in life, you know. So when I do jiu-jitsu, I put myself in difficult situations, uncomfortable situations a lot, and you know, I've more less now than I used to be, because you know I feel like my skill, you know, doing this long enough, your skill gets better. But I still do difficult things. I still push myself, and doing those difficult things, I think, translates. You know, all right, is your kid at home just completely going crazy, and you have to have just that self-control, right? Can you do that? Can you control yourself? Can you, something financially happens, are you going to freak out? Or are you going to try to handle your, you know, are you going to stay calm under pressure, right?
Can you bear the burden?
Yeah. And you do that. I think I don't want to say you numb yourself to difficult things, but you acclimate to them. And I think that you're also, insecurities come out, vulnerabilities come out, because I think even after a tough training session, I have more clarity. And so when I go home, I'm more, I won't say at peace, but I'm more just, I'm just more relaxed in a way. And I know I did something very difficult and, to me, meaningful, because jiu-jitsu is very meaningful to me. If I do well at, you know, if I do well at jiu-jitsu, whatever that means, this means different things to different people. If I feel like I had a good day at jiu-jitsu, it translates to, you know, having a good day. It means something to me. So when I do well at something that means something to me, I think I see the benefit, you know, and I think, like, it just shows me that doing something difficult, you know, has benefits to it.
I think the idea of difficulty, like, I think things are really, like, we've talked about this on the podcast before. Like, there is enjoyment that is given, and there's enjoyment that is earned.
It's earned, yeah.
Right? Enjoyment that is given is like easy stuff. Like stuff like, you know, you get on and someone gives you a piece of cake, right? Like, or you ride a roller coaster, or, you know, I mean, I don't know, whatever you want to think about. Just something very easy, right? It's quick, it's fast,
right?
It's over. But then there's earned stuff, and the earned stuff gets better with time. It's like wine, right? Like, I guess fine wine. If you're into wine, right? They say like aged like fine wine. I don't know. I'm not a wine connoisseur.
You'll get there. Don't worry.
My palate's very poor. I drink some wine and I'm like, it tastes fine to me. You know, it's like, it's fine with me. Like, anytime I've been around my buddies that are big into alcohol, they like have this expensive stuff, you know, like, oh, this is a $800 bottle of bourbon. And
you remember when we went to the bourbon tasting, and I liked like the very first thing was like what was it? It's like clear. It was almost like vodka.
Oh yeah,
it
was before they like.
I was like, that stuff tastes good to me. I'm good with that.
Yeah. You know, but like, yeah, it's like I remember like going to bourbon tasting. That we went to that big bourbon tasting down in the downtown in Louisville. I was like, it tastes like bourbon. Like, I can taste like the difference between like a rye and a wheat. Yes, and I can taste like a little difference in some of them, but most of it's like bourbon to me. You know,
some bourbon hate. People are gonna go start messaging with some bourbon hate.
No, I mean, I just I can, like, now coffee, I can taste like the difference in coffee. Yeah. Like, again, my palate's just not that adapted to it because I don't drink enough, and I don't really plan to. I like being a cheap drunk. Where the hell was I going with
I
that?
don't know.
I was going somewhere. But aging like fine wine is what they say, right? So what did I say before? I got to go back. I got to finish the thought. I got off track.
I don't know. We were talking about bourbon, and I was just thinking about the bourbon.
Now we know. See, this is what happens going tangent. I gotta like keep notes. But I mean,
I think like maybe you're referring to, I don't know, like acclimating. I mean, just even doing difficult things like through time.
There we go. Difficult things. Thank you. I was like, there we go. There's the word. Ding, ding, ding. My friggin' hyperactive brain like zoned back in. All right. back
Your
to
ADHD brain.
Yeah, back to where we
Did
were.
you see this video? By the way, here's ADHD.
Hold on, I'm going to
moment.
write down difficulty because here we go again.
Let me tell you about
What's
so
up?
this guy, I think it was Gary Tonin that posted something on Instagram about this guy talking about ADHD.
Yeah.
He's like, for 99.6% of our existence, we have been hunter-gatherers, have to like completely get distracted to check our surroundings, to hunt and do this thing. And now you tell me, you know, in this past 200 years, we've, you know, agriculture's come on. Now we're like, you know, in this society where we, you know, sit at a desk all day or do this thing. And I can't do that for 8 hours. So you're telling me I have the problem. It's like when I've been ingrained, my life is, you know, as you know, I've developed as humans have developed. We've been these hunter-gatherers, have to completely be distractible to survive. And now you're calling me the weird one. Because I'm not just I can't just sit there and do this remedial, like annoying, meaningless task for hours on end. So
yeah, I mean, I've said this for a while. Like I think that sometimes like we use it. I mean, like I joke around saying it, right? With my ADD brain. I don't think I have really ADD, but yeah, I mean, like the idea of like school sitting at a desk in 8 hours and going to work for 8 hours. I mean, school, the way school systems are now, is just basically to make, you know, good workers, right? Because like, okay, you go to school for 8 hours and now you get done and then you go to work for 8 hours. I mean, like it's what it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the most part, like as far as productivity, like if you really get down to like people that are really productive, they don't go for 8 hours straight. Like they get bursts in, but like
exactly,
you're not going to sit there for 8 hours and just cram it out. And if you really measured your productivity, it goes down. You know, because it's like you've only got so much in you. And honestly, you can get way more done than most people can if you're actually productive. You can get a lot done in a very short amount of time.
Yes,
because most people waste a massive amount of time doing stupid stuff. They don't work in a good environment. Like they'll sit at their desk and they've got their phones sitting up to where they're getting ready to do something. Ding, 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 ding. It's going off. People are bothering them. You know, you have to make sure that your environment supports those things. If you can, of course, depending on the type of job you have.
Well, there's this professor, another video I saw, this professor's talking about studying, and he's like, you can study for 8 hours, right? Like straight through, but he showed this chart where basically your concentration, your ability to retain information just goes down immensely versus a chart where you study in bursts, like 30 minutes and you take a 5-minute break and do something you enjoy for 5 minutes, listen to music or go for a walk or something. And it shows like it declines a little bit. It still stays up pretty high, right? Versus like you just decline so fast and you get maybe more study time, but you don't really understand or retain the information as well. So taking breaks, you know, we're taking our little break right now. It's our little respite, our 5-minute tangent.
But well, I was watching a thing that was supposed to be like helping kids with ADD, ADHD.
Yeah,
I don't know what the term
ADHD, I believe.
ADHD. Okay. And you know, one of the things they said was, and this is something I've been doing for a long time now, is using timers.
Yes. So
I like whenever I work on a timer because it gives me that satisfaction of like just like a workout, regardless of how the workout went. I did it. I did my 30-minute, and I do it in about 33-minute bursts. Yeah. So I'll do 30-minute, 33. And the only reason I did that was because there was a copywriter named Eugene Schwartz. He did 33 minutes, and I was like, 33 minutes works. So 33 minutes. I'll get up and take like a 5-minute walk or whatever I got to do, get some water, just stretch out a little bit, come back and work. I can do that. Like if I don't have anything to do, I can literally do that all day long.
Yeah.
But I've done where I just do straight on, and I usually trash out at about like 2.5 hours. But then I can go 33-minute bursts, and I can do that for like 6, 7 like hours. Just
get more done.
Yeah. But going back to difficulty, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. I was walking out on the property, and I was kind of thinking about this. Like, stuff's really only meaningful because it's difficult. Like even the idea of like people say, "Oh, you're so lucky you get to do what you love," right? Or you love what you do, or something like that. You know, and I'm like, people will say, you do what you love. That's what it is. But I think of it as I love what I do. Excuse me. I love what I do. Necessarily do what I love because I love what I do, but it's difficult, super difficult. Like most people would not be able to maintain the type of schedule that I maintain, right? They would want it. And so there's nothing wrong with that. Different strokes for different folks, or the sacrifices that I had to go through young to get here. Like you wouldn't have wanted to do that. A lot of people wouldn't. It's okay. Just different choices. Right. But I think about that difficulty, though, is what makes it kind of enjoyable. It's what makes it meaningful. I think that's the way it is with a lot of things. Like the difficulty that something has is meaningful. That's why we kind of look at it as like as someone who achieved a black belt in jiu-jitsu in their 7 to 12 years, whatever, is kind of a remarkable thing, worth being remarked upon, right? Opposed to you got your black belt in a year and a half. Who gives a damn, right? Now, granted, if it was jiu-jitsu, like, a lot of times it's like martial arts where they're just like, here's your belts. Let's get this belt factory going. If it was jiu-jitsu and you're like smashing everybody in a year and a half, that's remarkable. That's still worth talking about, right? That's good.
Sure.
Time aside, that's remarkable. But when we see people going through difficult stuff, we think it's cool. And also for us going through it, when it's difficult, it's enjoyable to look back upon. Like even the house that Jess and I have, right? Like we spent a couple years in an apartment. There's a little apartment, right? Most people would have been like, not wanting to do that. Like even her, when we first started doing it, she was like not really hip to the idea because we're going backwards because we're going from a house to an apartment. I was like, just trust me on this one. We're going to save a big chunk of change. We're going to I'm going to grow in some other areas. We're going to be doing this stuff and it's going to work out. And I was even thinking about this morning. Like, it's so weird. We had this like little vision for ourselves, like cooked up. I was like this is like 3.5 years ago. I was like, I want us to have a little bit of land. I was like, I'm going to be waking up in the morning early. You're going to be sleeping late. I was like, I'd love to have this life where you're able to sleep a little bit later, where you don't have to stress in the morning when you go to work and whatever. And I had this little thing and I came in there. I was like, the only thing right now we're missing is a pool. That was like, that was one of the only things out of that vision that I had is like a pool. It's like, because that's the next thing, right? Like, cause otherwise everything else is there. It's weird how that works. But it's like that our little place is nice. We enjoy it because it's not anything crazy or extravagant, but like we went through some difficulty to get there. Like we were talking about like just some different quirks about apartment living, we're like, that kind of sucked, but glad we don't have to do it anymore.
What was a quirk? What was the apartment living thing? I used to live in a condo.
Okay.
So I can kind of relate.
All right. So here's the best
Let's
one.
hear it.
So Jess is going to laugh because she listens to the podcast. She's going to laugh hearing this. So we had one of our neighbors. He was a nice dude, very nice guy, but he was just dramatic about everything. I mean, just everything. Okay. So like what would happen is sometimes like on Saturday, I would be doing laundry. And then, we stopped laundry. You'd stop doing laundry because it was like a place where, the walls weren't super insulated or whatever, So if we were doing laundry downstairs, people could hear it. And if that buzzer goes off, people are going to hear it. I don't want to wake people up. So we stopped laundry around 9 o'clock. That was kind of the rule. No laundry past 9 o'clock.
So it's like a group, it was like everybody used the same.
Yeah, we all use the same. There was two sets of washers and dryers down there. Everybody used laundry. Right?
Okay.
So we're down there, and I remember hearing it was every now and then I'd forget to take the laundry out, right? And so he would go downstairs early in the morning, like 7 o'clock, right? And that's when he would start his laundry on Sunday mornings, and he always started on Sunday mornings at like 7 o'clock. And so when he'd go down there, and I mean, our bedroom was like right under the laundry room. He'd get down there, and then you would hear, I'm going to have to put you'd hear, oh God. Oh, like he's this old guy. He sounded like someone had like murdered someone. Like he's just coming down and seeing this dead body. Like, oh my God. And then I'd go down. I was like, shit. So I'd get up, go downstairs real quick so I could get my laundry out there. And he'd be like, oh, hey, Nick, how's it going? I'm like, hey, Nick, I was like, let me get this stuff out of your way, And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I'm like, not a big deal. It's like, I can hear you up here. You're like 5.
Did you ever say anything to him?
No, man. I was like, you're 5 feet from my freaking bedroom. I was like, I can hear you down there like raising hell, I was like, my bad, but I always thought it was funny, but you quirks like that, but and again, we, it wasn't like we couldn't have gotten a house before. It was just like I wanted to save a big chunk of change. So we could like maybe try to pay that sucker off in a couple of years.
You got contrast, man.
Yeah. But
that's the thing. You got contrast from, you appreciate, even if it's not like a huge extravagant house, you appreciate it because you lived in a small apartment where you got Ralph or whatever his name is.
Ralph.
Yelling. I don't know. Sorry to all the Ralphs out there. Ralph. But just you have some privacy, some kind of space for yourself. It's just
well, I think that's probably why like one of the things some of the Stoics talked about, I think it was like Seneca in particular, I think it was, because Seneca lived like a pretty good life, like he was a kind of a rich guy for his time, but he would talk about like at least once a year, like going around and just like living poor, eat poor food, wear poor clothing, do everything.
Interesting.
You know, and like just do it that way. And I think it's, you know, and I'm not saying that anybody has to do this, but it's a neat idea because it gives you a level of appreciation for the things that you eventually do get. And you got to keep those things in your mind again. Because even like me, sometimes like we all do this. We can have I have a pretty amazing life, I think, right? That was almost intentionally done by me, like my thinking. I was like, I work towards it and everything else. And it's intentionally almost kind of what I want. But everybody can get kind of like, oh, I'm having a bad day, you know, whatever, the kind of stuff. When I have those bad days, I think about some of the other stuff that I didn't like in my life, or some of the other times that I had that were really rough. Like, remember that stuff. And if you can get a good feeling of it, like a really good feeling of what was it like sitting in that cubicle, just wanting to like body slam everyone, you know, now you don't have to, you know, or remember like what it was like to sleep on the mats, you know, for a little while because, you know, because you were getting paid $1,000 a month. You know what I mean? Like, remember what it was like to have to dig up change out of the couch cushion because you needed $5 for gas, and you literally had no money in your bank account, and you got a check that day, but you had to get across town to get the check at your job, and you didn't have any gas in the car, so you had to get the change to get the gas.
Yeah, perspective, man.
Well, it's worth remembering those things because then when you get a little bit better, you can be like, oh yeah, this is kind of nice. Like, you know, because we can become very accustomed to our stuff, and like it no longer has the same luster it had because it's every day. Right. You know, like even this beautiful table. This is this table. This is a beautiful table. Like the guy that made this table, this is an amazing
My friend
table.
Brad.
Your friend Brad. Now
Sandusky Woodcraft, I think.
Now we can take this table for granted. Right. And we can just be a stupid table.
I love this table.
Just whatever. But we could also remember that we were on Grandma's table about a year ago.
And you guys made fun of us for Grandma's table.
Right. Grandma's table. So
I mean, the green little legs and stuff. And I was like, oak.
It's like when you go to train, right? You can appreciate the training session, you know, or you can just be like, I had a bad day at training, boo-hoo. Or you could say, you know what, I was able to train today and I'm not injured. I remember being injured and that stuff sucked.
Yeah.
You can always do that because I mean, the fact that you were training today, that's a good day. Yeah. Or you can think about man, you ever want to like need some perspective for your life, go walk through a cancer ward in a hospital. It's real quick.
Yeah.
Like I remember like when my mom was up there, I was like, you know, some days, you know, I would remember like having a bad day. I'm like, you know, and even in my head, I'm talking to myself, what the hell's wrong with you? I was like, you're healthy. It's like, you remember those people that were up there? They would kill to have a bad day in your shoes right now. Right. So it's like super, okay. Like let's snap the shit out of that. Right. You know, so again, it's like we all have bad days, of course, but you keep like a little, like almost like a binder of those ideas and those memories in your head. And like, you know, whenever you're having a bad, you can just pull one out. And that's like you're talking about contrast. Contrast is powerful, right? You only have the idea of what hot is because you know what cold feels like, right? And so it's useful to have those contrasting ideas to appreciate what the hell you got going on.
Yeah. And just perspective on it. I mean, just like you said, training, like I had a spell with like, I've had a spell with like dizziness, like vertigo. I had it. And I think it's kind of, I think it's allergy related. I was just getting real dizzy and I was like, oh God, I can't even like stand up. Yeah. You know, how am I going to, into my head, I'm like, well, how am I going to work? How am I going to train? And then, you know, I started feeling a little better and it's just like, oh my God, so good. You're smiling. Like, even if you're don't have the quote unquote best day on the mat. You're still
and also for you,
smiling.
you also had a situation where, you know, some years ago you had an issue with like you had to get all these brain scans done and stuff like that. So it's not just like you were just a little dizzy one day.
Scary.
It's like, you had something else at play there too.
Yeah. And I think you just, there's a vulnerability there. It's like nothing's guaranteed either. You know, nothing's like, you can be able to train tomorrow. Who the hell knows? Right. You know, we've had guys at the gym that have passed away, you know, and like you expect to see them the next day at the gym and you're like, and they're gone, you know, it's like, so makes you appreciate, just appreciate your time together, you know, appreciate even the, you know, quote unquote bad days on the mats, although they're sometimes hard to swallow, but they give you contrast in another way. When you have a good day on the mats, you're like, oh, this feels good.
Now going back to the idea of being a better person, so to speak.
All right.
When you've got all that stuff in your head, like you've got all those memories of like what it was like, then those are useful for helping other people. Like for instance, like when, you know, people get angry at like the new white belt for doing something stupid, remember that you probably did something stupid too. Help them out, give them some direction, right? Instead of like scolding them for being a bad training partner, bad white belt. Just give them a little something, like help them out, like
guidance.
They're probably, the reason they probably did something stupid is because they didn't know what to do at all, right? They hadn't learned it yet, so show them something, right? You know, you can help out other people, like if they're talking about they're nervous, like, oh yeah, me too, like I was there, you know what I mean? Like I've been there before. You know, you can offer like wisdom to them because of those experiences, and those things are incredibly helpful for people.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, going back to that, like that's some of that earned experiences that we've had, like those not only like mold you a bit, but they also give you the ability to then go back and help other people. Because there really isn't very many places that I really know of in society today where you can have a room with such a wide variety of not just like people's by race and social class and everything else, but also like just like age groups. You can have a wide variety of ages. Like you can get everything from like on the mats yesterday, we had everything from like 13, because I got this giant kid who's 13. He's cool as can be.
He's 13.
Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah. What? 13. Isn't that crazy? Like 200 pounds, 6 foot, like 6 foot even, 6'1", 200 pounds. Freaking a great kid. But he's 13, he's so big. He's 13 years old. I call him man child because he's so huge.
So big.
So he's on the mat with us. And then we've got everything up until like getting close around 50. Man, 13 to 50. Where else are you going to, like in the 13 and the 15-year-old, we're drilling together. It's like, where else do you get to see that?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, where else does that happen? Like, where else do you get to have this like connection to like 13-year-old and 50-year-old, or just completely hanging out, talking, laughing together, sharing ideas. And, you know, on the off chance that someone needs help sometimes, like this happens all the time in the gym, they can go, hey, like, can someone like help me out? Or does anybody know someone, whatever? Like, oh yeah, I got someone, you know, it's like, it reminds me of like the, it's almost like a church like atmosphere, you know, in a way, like the ones that I've been to where like everybody's kind of like bonded together. And if like you need something, like, oh, well, I know, you know, Jake has this thing or something, you know, like everybody's kind of there to help, just minus the, you know, the religious part.
Yeah.
You know, we have our own like ideologies in jiu-jitsu though. So we're not free from it.
I think we used to, who would call like on Sundays, there would be guys, group of guys get together to train. We call it church.
Yeah.
They'd call it church. Yeah. And I mean, it kind of is, man. Like it's one of the best, like I always say, like on a Sunday morning, you get a hard training session in, like the sun's shining, you have like the rest of the weekend ahead of you. It's like,
that's Saturday for me.
Or Saturday. Yeah.
Oh, you said Sunday. Okay.
Saturday. That's what
Saturday,
I meant to say Saturday. Yeah. Like a Saturday morning. That's one of my favorites. Like, because it's kind of, you know, everybody's fairly lighthearted. It's like the weekend. People aren't like, oh, I gotta go to work tomorrow. So I think everybody's in a better mood anyways.
Especially training, you can go home and take a nap.
Some of us can, Chewy. Some of us has little children that like to run around and, you know, keep you up at all hours of the day and night. So
you get like a little hamster wheel, put them in there.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Why not?
I don't know.
Is it like a little hamster wheel, make them run? Like,
it doesn't work.
Get them real tired. I mean,
like Dad, no.
No, I have like a cage where like it starts spinning.
I'm not putting my kids in a cage, Chewy.
And then like it starts the little treads, they start going and they don't have a choice. They've either got to walk or they're gonna get like skinned alive. They just got to go.
Nope.
They just have to run, and they get there. They're like, Daddy, what's going on? It's like, you got to run, kids. And then they start running.
Run for your life.
And that, you know, put them in an hour of that and they'll go to sleep.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's how it works, but no, kids are great. Kids are fun. But, you know, I am excited, you know, as far as kids, you know, getting my kids to at least partake in a little bit of jiu-jitsu.
Have you seen the body, like the leashes that they have for kids? Have you seen those?
Look, man,
where they have like body harnesses.
Yes, they have like, they give them like a fun backpack. Like, here's a fun backpack. That's like this monkey. But
it like straps across.
My sister-in-law gave it to her kid. Man, I said I would never do that, but let me tell you, I've thought about it a few times. My kids are getting too old for that stuff. You can't trick them. Like, no.
5-year-old dragging them with like a leash,
dude. I think I don't judge anybody. Like some parents need that, and that's fine. But like I was like in my head, if I'm a parent, because I always had some judgment about people that use those things, and I was like, I'm never gonna be that parent.
Never gonna put in the leash.
I haven't yet, thank God. But you know.
I saw one. There was this one kid was like, I was in the airport once, and I think they were trying to catch a flight,
dude.
And you can see, like, you know, if you've ever seen someone trying to catch a flight, they have this distinct look on them, right? And like, they're trying to go and they're trying to move quick, but they've got their hands are holding bags, so it doesn't look like they can hold the kid. So they've got this dual harness where there's the leash strapped to them and then it straps to the kid, and then this kid's being drug along. Like he's just like, dude, he's like trying to like sit there. He's like, I don't want to go. They're just getting pulled along.
So traveling kind of during COVID to Hawaii with 2 kids.
Oh, the masks. Did they have to wear
masks? Yep, you have to wear masks. You have to.
Terrible.
So this is what
Those
I did.
Poor kids.
This is what I did. This is how
Get
cheap I am.
Get them a little mesh.
My wife will never let me. And she's right, 100%. I didn't want to check any bags.
Of course not.
We had 4 carry-ons and then our backpacks. I had 4 bags in like 2 bags in each hand, and the kids and like carry-on stuff, dude. It was, and that's when I was like, I got to leash these kids up somehow. Cause like, I can't, cause they're just been cooped up, it's a pretty long flight to Hawaii. And like, we were getting, you're all freaked out about like germs, and we got to Hawaii and we're waiting. It's been a long trip. And we're waiting to get our car. And my kids are literally rolling on the floor and it's like dirty, and I'm like freaking out. I was like, oh my God. I literally had put them on the suitcase and I was like rolling them around the suitcase. I would have leashed them up at that point. I would have duct taped them to the suitcase.
Like a little chain gang holding their bags.
We had to go through all these airports and stuff with like me carrying all these suitcases because I didn't want to check any bags because I'm an idiot. And so
must have learned.
I wouldn't have leashed him up that time, but no, yeah. Oh yeah. She's like, I'm never, dude, we're checking all the bags. I don't care. I don't want to have any of that shit.
You man, if you want to, man, you can take a little bit of money out of the podcast fund and you can go get those bags checked.
That's too late now, man. But yeah, it was fun. It was a fun trip. But yeah, I can see how people would use baby harness or whatever you call them. Child leashes.
Yeah,
how do we get on this topic?
I don't know, man. That's what we do. That's what we do.
What do we do? All right. Well, let's wrap it up.
All right, guys. So
be a good person. Don't leash your child.
Don't leash your child. Don't be a black belt, leash your child. Wait, what? What did this episode become? So check this out, guys. Right. Again, just to wrap this thing up. You don't got to be a good person to be a good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. There's plenty of scuzzy people out there that are really good at Jiu-Jitsu. That just happens. That's a byproduct of just being a human, right? It happens. But if you want to be a better person, there are opportunities through the training that you go through where you will have an opportunity to grow both your inside and and out, physical and mental, and spiritual, and all that stuff. And so again, that's up to you. If you want to, you'll have those opportunities. You'll make something happen, right? If you don't want to, if you don't really care about being a person or whatever, a better person, then that's on you, but again, in the end, I just don't place a mythological sort of thing on martial artists. Martial artists are people. They're fallible. They make mistakes. They're human, and don't put them on a pedestal. That like somehow they're supposed to be these amazing people because they've dedicated their time to something. If a musician did something bad, we wouldn't think anything of it. We'd be like, oh, he's a musician, of course. Well, he got good at a skill, right? Maybe he's good at playing the guitar. It's a skill acquisition thing, but we, a lot of times with martial arts, we think they're supposed to be, and there can be, depending on the coaches that are existing and the subjective quality of the black belt, there could be that kind of thing. We try to do a good job at our gym about that. But it doesn't have to mean that. So that's that, to answer Jeremy's question that he originally had, and all that random stuff that you guys got to join in there for. And hope you enjoyed the podcast. All right, guys. So thank you for joining the podcast today. Hope you got something from that ramble. That always happens when Eugene and I are doing something. Like we have our focus thing that we want to talk about, and then we start to just dive off and go on tangents. I think most of you guys are probably understanding of that, because that's typically what happens amongst friends, right? You start just talking about every which way, and by the end of it, you get to the end of the conversation, you're like, how did we get here? That happens a lot in the morning jiu-jitsu classes. Like during the 10 a.m.s when we're training, we'll start talking before that we start training, and the conversations are all over the place. There's like, by the end of it, we're like, how did we get to this? So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Guys, if you want to check out our patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. You got to put the THE in there, the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. You can go over there. We have 2 different packages currently. I'm trying to figure out something where maybe we can give something away Maybe have a third package. We give you guys something away, like send you something physical, like in the mail.
What
In a
about
snail mail.
maybe a t-shirt or something else?
More details on that later.
Hmm.
But the right now we have one tier allows you to get access to all the content we've added. Now the content is a mixture of things. It's everything from narrated rolling, where we'll break down a roll or a competition match, so this way you can sort of take some gems away from it from yourself. There's a basic workout plan. So if you haven't been in the gym for a while, there's a workout plan included in there. We've got some stretching and warm-up videos. So again, if you're one of those people that doesn't know how to warm up very well, or you just want some stretches, like I'm a big fan of stretching at night when you get done, or either when you're at home stretching after a shower to loosen up your muscles, you can do that. And there's also content available, which is probably more for entertainment value as well, learning stuff. But we've got several black belts that have obviously all these black belts that have been on the podcast with us and all these different guests. We have a piece of content from each one of them. In addition, me and Eugene have some behind the scenes stuff, some podcast extras and things like that, where we'll cover a topic. So if you want to get that stuff as well, support the podcast, but again, get some stuff for yourself. You can check it out at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And then the upgraded tier is that. Plus, we do some live calls on some live chats from time to time, and you can get access to those, where you can get access to literally to chat with me. Like I remember just a while ago, we had a guy, Dan, this is actually last year. Dan was on the call. And he's not on the Patreon. He did something else where he got in the call, but it's available to the Patreon members as well, where he was having trouble rolling with big guys. And I gave him a detail about how to use knee on belly for big guys, because he's smaller. And then he came back, he's like, it's working, And so again, if you've ever enjoyed my videos and things like that, if you ever like, man, I'd like to talk to that guy in person, but you can't make it to Kentucky, well, this can be an option for you. And guys, again, big thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web, charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Chewjitsu. Save 15% on the order and get yourself some top-notch CBD that you can try. Again, I urge you, if you do get it, or if you're on the fence about it because you've heard about that kind of stuff, give it a whirl, because I waited for a long time to try it, and it's kind of like jiu-jitsu. I really wish I would have tried this sooner to see what it was like. So if you're on the fence about it, give it a whirl. Big thanks to Matt at Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu, 15% off the order. And Manscaped, manscaped.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20. You save 20% on the order, and you get free shipping on it. It's a pretty good deal on some fantastic male grooming products. So again, if you're a guy and you haven't been taking care of yourself and you want to take care of yourself a little bit better, check it out. And yeah, guys, with that said, thank you for being on the podcast with us. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.